Good evening, I'm David Brown, and this is the Northern Sun Experience. We had a wild weekend of basketball featuring matchups between the top two conference teams on both the men's and women's side. We'll start with the men, where Augustana and Minnesota State Moorhead came into their Saturday matchup with a combined 47-2 record. The number 4 and number 6 teams in the Division II poll respectively would square off in a big battle at Sioux Falls Arena, and one of their double-digit winning streaks would end. First half, Augie was shooting the lights out. Alex Richter nails the corner 3, and the Vikings are up 7-2. Later in the half, some production from Augie's bench as Steven Schaefer nails a 3 from the left elbow to put the Vikings up by 6. The Dragons would work the inside game later in the half. Isaac Sievely throws it down not once but twice on consecutive possessions for MSU Moorhead, and that would cut the lead down to 3. The Vikings would add a bit of a cushion late in the half. Wells Fargo loves Casey Schilling as a customer since he called bank. Augie up 11 at that point. Second half, Dragons take the lead. Tyler Vaughn's 3 caps a 6-0 run to start the half for MSU Moorhead, and this game would continue to remain close. This Jordan Reaver left-handed scoop cuts the Augie lead to 3 with 6.5 minutes to go. But the Vikings would blow things open late. Schilling gets the steal and drives for the hoop, plus the foul. Augie is up 10. And then Dan Jansen, the NSIC South Division Player of the Week, hits 3s on back-to-back possessions to increase the lead to 16. And the Vikings win the Battle of the Titans over the Dragons 97-80. On the women's side, a top 2 matchup between Northern State and Wayne State, and the Wildcats were on the prowl from the start. Ashton Yassi with the steal, Sadie Murren with the lay-in, and Wayne State's up too early. Back come the Wolves. Sadie Stotesbury nails the long 2 from the top of the key. She had 15 on the night. Later in the half, more good defense from Wayne State. Jordan Spencer picks off the pass, and she'll eventually go coast to coast for the lay-in, but the Wildcats are up by just 2 points at the break. Second half, Wayne State increases its lead. Great effort on this loose ball, and Spencer eventually corrals it, gets the hoop plus the foul. Wildcats are up by 13. But the Wolves would close and keep things close in the final minute. Rachel Krogman gets the layup inside. She had 18, and Northern State's up by 1. But in the final seconds, it's Spencer driving to the hoop with 12 seconds left. She would miss the free throw, but the Wildcats are up 58-57. Last chance for the Wolves. Devin Brecky gets a great look at a 3, but it doesn't go down, and that would pretty much wrap things up. Wayne State escapes with a 58-57 win. Afterwards, Jordan Spencer talked about her game-winning layup.
I was just glad that I could be there for the team and make a big play when I wasn't, hitting shots. I wasn't finishing shots during the game. I didn't really have my best game, but I was just happy that I could be there to make, that shot for us.
2 great teams that just battled right down to the end, and both teams probably deserved to win. Both teams probably deserved to lose. We made one more basket than them and just found a way to win the game, and just so proud of our players.
When we come back, we'll break things down with former Augustana point guard Jordan Dalton. Find out what he thinks the key to victory was for his alma mater on Saturday.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience, joined by former Augustana point guard Jordan Dalton. And Jordan, a great weekend for your alma mater. Augustana wins the Battle of the Titans. They pull away from MSU Moorhead late. It's a 17-point win. Not really indicative of how the game played out, but how were the Vikings able to pull away in those last 6 minutes?
Well, you mentioned even though they finished, with a 17-point win, Moorhead was able to stay in the game for the first 35 minutes of the game. Augie did a great job of finishing out the game, ended the last 6.5 minutes on a 24-10 run. Got a couple big 3-pointers from Dan Jansen on some pick and pops there. And I honestly think it was their size. They play 5 guys over 6'5" or taller. And so that's tough to go against for 40 straight minutes. They did a great job of hitting the offensive board. They had 15 offensive rebounds and scored 44 points in the paint. So when you have to go against that type of size and athleticism the entire game, I think it just got to the point toward the end where Moorhead ran out of gas more than anything.
Is that really what makes Augie so unstoppable, the fact that they have tall guys who can play inside and outside?
Well, I think it's that inside-out dynamic. You talked about, playing inside when you have Dan Jansen, a great post-up player. You have Casey Schilling, who was one of the best offensive rebounders in the conference. And then you have Jordan Spencer getting to the lane. But you can't just hunker it down in the lane and force him to shoot three-pointers because they have very capable three-point shooters. Basically, they put 5 guys out there on the court who can make a three at any time. So it puts tremendous amount of pressure and stress on the defense because they have so many weapons that they can go to. And I think it just speaks to the versatility. We talked last week, they got 3 guys in the top 10 in scoring. And so you can't key in on one guy. You can't key in on one aspect, and which is a big reason why they're obviously one of the top teams in the country.
And top team in the country, they move up to number 2 in the Division II poll, their highest ranking of all time. We mentioned they were number 3 back in '88, but now they are the 2nd-ranked team in the D2 poll. As for Minnesota State Moorhead, as you said, neck and neck for most of the game. They just had a bad stretch at the end. So how do the Dragons bounce back?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is they can't lose confidence. They were in that game, like you said, for 34, 35 minutes of that game, just didn't finish it off, as strong as they wanted to. But their game plan still worked. They were able to make 10 three-pointers and shot over 50% from the three-point line in the second half. So they have to maintain confidence and continue to play their style of basketball. Like I said, they had a great game on Saturday night, just wasn't able to finish it. So the biggest thing moving forward is we call it hero ball. Guys can't start to play hero basketball where they try to win every game individually with one big shot. They have to stick to what got them there. They're still, the second best team in this conference and one of the best teams in the country. So they have to stick to their guns. They have to continue, obviously, to share the basketball, shoot three-pointers. The one thing they will have to correct is rebounding. Yeah, they did get out-rebounded 39-27 in that Augie game. And so they're going to have to battle on the boards a little bit more if they're going to want to make a deeper run into the conference tournament.
Yeah, the Dragons actually finished with a better shooting percentage, but as you mentioned, with the out-rebound advantage for Augustana, they got all those second-chance points.
And that's the thing. You can't give a team like Augie that many more advantages from the field because it's daunting and it's tiring on a defense. When you play 35 seconds of great defense, you get a stop, you get a team to take a tough shot, and then they get an offensive rebound, now you got to play 35 more seconds. That really wears on a team and tires a team out. And so they just have to do a better job of limiting teams to one shot. I know they're not the biggest team, in the conference, but they have to do a good job chucking guys on the box out, going and attacking the basketball.
Just Moorhead's 2nd loss of the season. Well, a team that's sort of flown under the radar but is doing well right now, St. Cloud State. They've won 4 games in a row. What's working for the Huskies?
One big thing that's working for them is they're filling the points up on when they're scoring. They're one of the top scoring teams in the conference, scoring 75-plus points in 3 out of their 4 wins so far. And then I really like the point guard play of Jordan Poitras. He's averaging 19 points per game, 3.5 assists. He's got his 3rd Player of the Week, recognition this week. And so he's really doing a great job of just playing with the ultimate amount of freedom and confidence. He's got 60 more field goal attempts than anybody on the team. So you can tell he has that ultimate green light, and he's taking full advantage of it. When you give a talented player like that freedom and that confidence to score, it just opens up the floor and makes things a lot easier for him.
To show the disparity of hot teams, St. Cloud State 4 wins in a row, the 2nd longest winning streak, of course, to Augustana's 16 in a row. Well, moving on to Minnesota State. They got back on track with a couple of home victories this weekend. So where do the Mavs stand in your mind in the conference?
Well, I think it's been the same thing for Minnesota State. They've been the 3rd best team in this conference the entire year. They have 2 absolute studs in Austin Mariah and Zach Monahan. But what I was more impressed to see was the bench scoring this weekend. The bench was able to average 22 points a game. And we've talked about them needing a supporting cast to help those 2 great seniors. And so what that does is that builds trust in that locker room that, hey, we do have guys that come off the bench that aren't named Asa Mariah or Zach Monahan that can put points on the board and get their own shots and be a valuable asset to this team. So I really think it kind of builds a lot of team camaraderie, a lot of team trust and a confidence in one another. So they know we have more than just those 2 studs, in our starting 5. We got some guys that can come off the bench and fill it up as well.
Yeah, last weekend, Minnesota State lost 2 in a row. First time they've lost back-to-back games since 2012, just to give you an idea of how dominant they've been of late. So Minnesota State, Moorhead, Augustana, obviously the big matchup last weekend. I don't know if this weekend's matchups can live up to that, but what's one you're looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to St. Cloud State versus Minnesota Moorhead. Like you said, Moorhead coming off a tough loss at Augie, and St. Cloud's on that 4-game winning streak. We'll see how they're able to compete against one of the Titans in the North Division. And, Moorhead was able to get the best of them earlier this year, won by 13 in a game where they shot 39 free throws. It's kind of uncommon for them as they're more a perimeter-oriented team. So it's a good battle or test for St. Cloud to see where they're at. and we'll see how Moorhead's able to bounce back from one of their toughest losses of the year.
Well, speaking of tough losses, the Northern State women's team had a couple of big, tough losses this past weekend. When we come back, Jordan's going to break down women's hoops, including how the Wolves bounce back from those close games.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience, joined once again by Jordan Dalton. Jordan, we had that big matchup on the men's side, a big matchup on the women's side as well between the top two teams. Wayne State hosted Northern State, and the Wildcats win on a layup by Jordan Spencer with 12 seconds left. Wildcats have now won 12 games in a row, so can anyone stop them right now?
It's going to be tough. What that game was, that was a great measuring stick win for them. They were able to see where they competed against the best team in the conference in Northern State, and the Wildcats absolutely stepped up to the challenge. You mentioned Jordan Spencer with a great layup to win the game. Not only was that shot great, but she had a great weekend. You know, she was the player of the week in the South Division with 15.5 points a game, 7 rebounds, 4 steals, 3 assists. So she really filled the stat sheet there and came up big for her team when she needed it. You know, that's the type of player, that's the type of play you want to see from a player of the week candidate who's been on the radar consistently. You know, she drove to the basket strong, was able to finish with a tough shot, and almost get the and one as well. And so it's great to see Wayne State once again continue to have some success. And really, it's another tough one for Northern State. You feel bad for those girls there.
Yeah, well, speaking of feeling bad, not only the Wayne State loss, but on Friday, they lost on a last-second layup to Augustana. So they have 2 losses on last-second layups by a combined 3 points this weekend. So how do they rebound from this?
Well, as we talked about, that's just a heartbreaking weekend. When the staple of your team is your defense, and to lose 2 games on 2 layups, I think was a tougher pill to swallow. I really think it obviously in both those games, those were under 60-point games. You know, that's the tempo they want to play. That's the style they want to play. They really have to do a better job of getting easier buckets. Just about every bucket they get is out of a set play. And so what happens is you get further and deeper into the conference season, teams obviously have more film on you, so they're able to prepare a little bit more. Now, Northern runs a ton of sets, so teams aren't going to be able to prepare for all of them. But what happens on Northern's offense when the set play breaks down? Who's able to just go get a basket that's not necessarily dictated off a set play? I really think that player obviously is Rachel Krogman. She's one of the best offensive players in the conference. But they have to have that type of freedom and really trust their basketball instincts to just go get a play, when defenses take something away in their sets.
So with these close games, is it a matter of closing things out, or as you said, do they need to learn to maybe improvise a little more when those sets break down?
Obviously, you want to close every game out strong. As you get under a minute left, things become tense, things become a little stressful. So you want to be able to buckle down and play your best basketball. But we talked about it last week. It also teaches you to value every single possession. You have to be able to generate some easy offense, so you're not putting so much stress on your sets to really run into scores and get buckets that way. So I really think it's one of those things where people overanalyze, in my opinion, the last minute or so of the game because a turnover or made field goal or a missed box out assignment in the first minute of the game is just as important as it is in the last minute. Every single possession matters. So I think it's one of those things where they just have to become more consistent, throughout the course of the game.
Just to give an idea of how similar these games were, they lost 59-57 Friday, lost 58-57 on Saturday. Well, when Nona State has won 4 games in a row, that's the next longest winning streak in the conference besides Wayne State, and they've now gone into a tie with Northern State as far as team standings overall. So what was impressive about the Warriors this weekend?
This weekend, obviously, I really like their bench scoring. Their bench came up with 34 points per game. Led by Kayla Timmerman, who's actually Winona State's leading scorer. And so it's pretty unusual to have your best offensive weapon coming off the bench. But she seems like she creates a great spark for the Warriors and has obviously been that shot in the arm they've needed when she's been inserted into the lineup. And also, you look at their defensive prowess. They kept both teams they played against this weekend under 40% shooting. And so that shows you that they're making a commitment to one another on the defensive end to really get consistent stops and make it basically just frustrating for the opposing team. When you're having to take tough and contested shots on a consistent basis, it really gets you frustrated and teams start to press. And so that was probably what I was most impressed about was just their defensive effort this weekend.
And probably another thing you're impressed with, both wins were on the road. You talked earlier about how they need to learn to win games on the road. Well, 2 weeks left in the season. What's a team that could make some noise down the stretch?
I know this might sound a little biased, but I'm going with Augustana Vikings.
Oh, come on now.
I just think when you get down to tournament time or the last stretch of the season, seniors have this instinct or kind of kicks in that, hey, this could be the last time I put this jersey on. This could be the last time I go out and compete with some of my best friends. And so when you have an offensive weapon like Shantiva Ashley, I just really think she has the ability to carry this team to, a deep tournament run. And she's one player that I'd fear going into the conference tournament as far as a player who by herself can take over the game, not only scoring but getting others involved. So I'd really be hard-pressed to bet against Shantiva Ashley and the Augustana Vikings.
Well, even though they lost to Minnesota State Moorhead this weekend, Ashley still leads the league in both scoring and assists, so a multi-versatile player. Well, what's the women's matchup you're going to be looking forward to this weekend?
Really looking forward to Winona State versus Minnesota State Mankato. Those are two teams, like you said, with two of the longest winning streaks in the conference. Two teams who've been playing phenomenal as of late. I know Winona won the first game 79-62, where they were able to hit 9 3-pointers. It'll be interesting to see if the Minnesota State Mankato Mavericks can shut down that 3-point line and really get good looks at the basket. I think for Minnesota State to have some success in that game, they can't turn the basketball over, and they have to defend the 3-point line. And we'll be able to see where they're at.
We're getting close to tournament time, man. It's getting exciting.
Absolutely. I always call it's Christmas in March when that time comes around. So we can't wait. And the biggest things for these teams right now, they want to enter the tournament playing their best basketball. Teams want to obviously continue to progress and get better as the season comes along. And when that tournament time hits, you want to be at the peak of your performance. And we'll be able to see who can end these last 2 weeks on a high note.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Jordan Dalton. Well, when we come back, we go from the court to the mat and check in on all the undefeated wrestling teams in the conference.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. Turning our attention to wrestling now, and the Big Three are still undefeated. Upper Iowa, Augustana, and St. Cloud State have yet to lose a conference duel, and that would continue this past weekend. We'll start with Upper Iowa at Minnesota State. Mavericks get out to the lead early. Dwayne Robertson with the major decision over Chris Paulus at 125 pounds. But the Peacocks would win 7 of their next 8 matchups, including Jordan Rinkin with the pin on Adam Cooling at 157 pounds. Rinkin is the NSIC Wrestler of the Week, and Upper Iowa tops Minnesota State 27-10. In other action this weekend, St. Cloud State hosted Minnesota State Moorhead. This is Mike Rohn with the nice reversal for the Huskies. He takes the decision at 133 pounds over Blake Bosch. Then at 184 pounds, it's Dylan Braun getting around for 2 points, and St. Cloud State wins handily over Minnesota State Moorhead 45-0. Augustana, the other undefeated team in conference duels, took on UMary in Bismarck. This is Morgan Engelbrecht getting 2 points at 133 pounds, and he would eventually get the decision. And then this time it's Austin Jordan picking up Miguel Rivera and getting him on the mat for the pin. He wins at 149 pounds, and the Vikings top the Marauders 40-6. So Augustana, Upper Iowa, and St. Cloud State remain undefeated in conference duels. When we come back, it's DB's Picks, the top 5 plays of the past week in the NSIC. You're watching the Northern Sun Experience.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by CU Mortgage Direct LLC, Sanford Health, and Dakota Land Honda.
And welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. As usual, it's time for the best of the best, the top 5 plays of the past week in the NSIC. At number 5, we head to Bemidji, where SMSU's Joey Bartlett shows his prowess at both ends. The sophomore steals the cross-court pass and glides in for the one-handed throwdown. The Mustangs trailed the Beavers by double digits at halftime, but this steal and slam helped SMSU steal a victory from Bemidji State. But they didn't steal the number 5 spot on my top plays. They definitely earned it. For number 4, we go to St. Cloud, where Winona State's Conrad Masberg puts the Huskies in a spin cycle. He weaves his way between St. Cloud State defenders and gets the tough hoop plus the foul. The junior shows off his versatility and agility all in one, and this all-for-one play comes in at number 4. At number 3, Augustana's Casey Schilling helps put out the Dragon Fire. This steal and layup plus the foul extended the Vikings' lead to 10 over Minnesota State Moorhead. Check it out again, Schilling with great awareness on the play. He had another double-double for Augustana, as he and Dan Jansen helped lead the Vikings past the Dragons in a heavyweight showdown. The Viking ship is still sailing strong with 16 straight wins, and the number 3 play of my top 5. For number 2, a controversial finish in Crookston. With just 0.3 of a second left in regulation, Kevin Larson's inbounds pass hits the rim, but ricochets to Derek Red Jr., who taps it up for the tie against Sioux Falls. Pay no attention to the red on the backboard. Officials determined the clock should not have started because it hit the rim and not a player, and after a lengthy review, they concluded that the tipped shot would indeed count. Great awareness by Red and a great finish for the Golden Eagles, who would eventually top the Cougars in overtime. Red's tip-in kept Minnesota Crookston out of the red for number 2. But our number 1 play goes to Jordan Spencer of Wayne State, who hits this basket with 12.3 seconds left to top Northern State. Here it is again, the C parts for Spencer, who takes advantage and drives to the rack. She would miss the ensuing free throw, but it would not matter, as the Wildcats hold on for the 1-point victory and the number 1 play of the past week. For more information about all things NSIC, you can head to northernsun.org. Thank you again to all of our member schools for their contributions, and we'll see you next week on the Northern Sun Experience.